Hello and welcome to the Gaggle Web Challenge, and if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Samuel. Here with me today, of course, is co-founder of the Gaggle, Peter Lavelle. So, Peter, Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban has arrived in Washington, D.C., and will be meeting President Trump for lunch. Really, this today. He's brought with him an enormous team, enormous. I mean, it's just that, I mean, I think something like 180, a team of 180.
Well,
To,
who's running the government?
yeah, that's right. Now, normally, in the normal course of things, a meeting between Trump and Orban would be a very amiable, pleasant affair. These are two leaders who somehow embrace a kind of a nationalism, patriotism, conservative Christian values, and of course, peace. And in this case, however, the meeting could be quite fraught because President Trump imposed sanctions very recently on two Russian oil giants, Rosneft and Lukoil. Hungary imports about 86% of its oil needs from Russia. So, given those sanctions, the secondary sanctions, which is the key thing, is going to hit Hungary very hard, and energy costs in Hungary, particularly for domestic users, is already exorbitant. So going into the winter,
I mean,
it's going to
George,
be a
you
real
live there.
problem for
Do you
Hungary.
feel it? Do you feel the energy bill?
Yeah, the energy bills are steep, but winter energy bills are just absolute killers here, and so they're already killers. But if through the thanks to the sanctions, they're going to be absolutely impossible for people to cope with. So the question then is, Orban seems to think, or at least he's hoping, that his long-standing friendly relationship with Trump will serve him in good stead. However, Trump had already said in a kind of a news conference aboard Air Force One that, hey, when he was asked, you're going to give an exemption to Hungary for the sanctions. He said, yeah, Viktor Orban, who's a good friend of mine, asked for an exemption. We didn't give it to him. One other issue here is, of course, the very creepy presence of Treasury Secretary Scott Bessant. This is a Soros man. This is a guy who made his money, made his career. It was with Soros. He's one of the most belligerent when it comes to sanctions.
Yes.
He's always urging sanctions.
Every administration has a Darth Vader, and he's it.
Exactly. And given the fraught, to say the least, relations between Viktor Orban and George Soros, you can imagine Bessant will be urging Trump, no exemption, nothing. So it's going to be, I think, an interesting meeting.
Well, also, Orban, if by accident or design, he is Europe's whisperer for Donald Trump, and he has to take that into account. I mean, it's the only European leader that Trump speaks highly of,
Right.
okay? And is he going to put that relationship on the line? And if he does, what he does is he's playing into the Brussels crowd. I mean, they're going to be they're waiting for this meeting too. They want to see Orban crushed.
Yep.
So always the strategy is kiss up to him and flatter him, and you'll get what you want. Well, I suppose Orban will do that in his own way, but he's not going to get what he wants. I don't think there's a good outcome here for Hungary in any
I
of this.
also am very skeptical whether there will be a good outcome. Because even if Trump somehow placates Orban and says, "Okay, well, we'll give you a deferral. Let's wait for a few months." He may change his mind. He'll say, next week he'll say, "No, no, no
Sure.
deferral." Um, so I
But yeah, it's very interesting and very important that you mentioned Bessent because he's going to be in the room and he's going to
he's
like
going to be absolutely in the room, absolutely in the room. These are
he's going to be like no. No.
Yes, he's going to be in the room. Then, if you recall, and we talked about this before, Matthew Whitaker, the U.S. ambassador to NATO, he's likely to make his presence felt. Marco Rubio will make his presence felt. Or they say the same thing. You've got to get yourself off Russian oil because you're feeding the Russian war machine. You think, hey, this is the way Biden used to talk. Why are you talking like this? I thought you were going to be different.
They'll say to them, Victor, in hushed voices, keep an eye on Venezuela. Oil
Right, right. That's what they,
not going to be a problem,
right.
Victor.
Yes, yeah. But yeah. Now, Orban's main argument, I think, is going to be that if these energy prices are going to go through the roof this winter, I will lose the election next April. I'm already underwater in the polls. Um, and but at the moment, at least I can recover. I've recovered before, but if the energy prices go through a roof, there's no way that I can recover, and I will lose the election. And then you're going to have one of these globalists, a kind of a Brussels man to deal with. Um, might work a little bit with Trump. I'm not sure because in a way, Hungary is still small potatoes as far as Trump is concerned. Well, okay, he likes Viktor Orban
Yeah.
personally,
But see,
but
that's
in
just
terms of,
it.
yep,
That's just it, George. That's exactly it. He likes Orbán. He doesn't care about Hungary.
right, right, yeah, that's it, that's it. And because Trump has now taken this very, now a very belligerent position, which he hadn't taken before on Russia and Ukraine. I mean, up until the last telephone conversation with Putin and then the cancellation of the Budapest summit, Trump has kind of just drifted along without really making up his mind which way he wanted to go.
Which in a way is kind of making up his mind.
Right.
Yeah,
But now he's really thrown his weight in essentially into the war on the EU NATO side, and that's
exactly.
why all the Bessants and the Rubio are now talking in.
Hold the line.
That's
Hold the
right,
line.
exactly, and no different from the way they're talking now is no different from the way the Biden people were talking about the war. So that there's just simply now no longer any difference. And of course, the sanctions that he imposed. This was the first sanctions that Trump, had initiated himself. The rest was just simply he continued with the Biden sanctions. So it's going to be quite difficult because, of course, the media will be there, and the media, they will obviously be peppering Trump over and over again. Hey, Viktor Orban has asked for an exemption. Are you going to give him an exemption? Why are you giving him an exemption? Don't you want to win this war in Ukraine? So stop giving him an exemption. They're going to be doing this over and over again, and so it's
Well, and
difficult.
and what the exports to Ukraine from Russia are a rounding error. Okay, I mean it doesn't at the end of the day, in the bottom of the balance sheet, losing the Hungarian market is really okay. That's just a statistic.
Right,
But for Hungary, it's existential.
right. No,
Okay.
that's right.
If I were making that argument to Trump, I'd say, look, you're not hurting the Russians here. You're hurting only the Hungarians.
Right.
They're the ones who are going
Excellent.
to feel the impact. And the Russians are not going to feel that. It's an asterisk. It's like a
No,
rounding error.
that's right. That's right. And that's why Ukraine was kept attacking the Druzhba pipeline. They weren't doing it because somehow this is really going to hurt Russia if they damage the Druzhba pipeline. No, they were doing it in order to hurt Hungary, and they repeatedly everything that they do is to hurt Hungary because Hungary is in the way of this wholehearted EU support for Ukraine. Hungary said, no, we're not going to accept Ukraine inside the EU. I mean, they said we're just not going to do it. Hungary has obviously said we're not going to finance ourselves into the EU Now, Hungary has said, well, since we give money to the EU, Hungarian money is going to Ukraine, but we Hungarians are not ourselves going to give any money to Ukraine, and we're certainly not going to give you any arms. So all of that has, induced Zelensky to continue all the time to attack Hungary, and of course, this has been joined by Tusk and all the rest of them. So that it used to be the case that Hungary used to get attacked by these West Europeans for unenlightened views on LGBT stuff issues. Now he's under attack from Poland, supposedly the great ally, the
Yeah, but
Hungarian
see,
Polish friendship.
but Trump will lose because I mean, you're obviously closer to it than I am, but he Orbán is underwater in the polls right now. I mean, he's a great political fighter. He's a survivor, but you have even told me. I mean, there is a level of Orbán exhaustion and stuff like that. But Trump will lose not a high card, not at all, not a, but he'll lose a card
Yeah,
because they were going to have the summit in Budapest,
right.
okay? And Orban, of all European leaders, has articulated what I think, and I think George agrees with me, the most sensible way forward on this. He will lose that card.
Right.
What is his name? Peter Magyar is the
Yeah, yeah, Peter Magyar, yeah.
oh, okay. Well, what's different? I mean,
Nothing. He's
Kaya Kalas, okay. It didn't matter. And then this
exactly.
guy,
It's just
another
an empty suit.
faceless.
I mean, you can see everything about him. You take a look at him. Just physically take a look at him. You see, this is an empty suit. This is just kind of a pretty boy. Wearing nice clothes. Looks like a cool guy. Kind of younger than Orban. I mean, that was nothing else to him. I mean, just try to listen to one of his speeches. It's boilerplate. We've got to get rid of corruption. We've got to get rid of Russian influence. You could just by the numbers. You look like put Chat GPT, draft me a speech attacking Orban, and then you get a Peter Magyar speech. So absolutely, there's just nothing to him. But there is an exhaustion with him. I mean, and people, he's been there, prime minister for 15 years. Before that, he was a prime minister between 98 and 2002. So altogether, he's been prime minister now for 19 years. He's still relatively young, but nonetheless, younger people grow up and they say, "Well, God, I'm tired of him. I want somebody new, somebody younger."
Well, and you can, and there are obviously elements, probably not the majority, but say, what is fighting Brussels gotten us?
Yep.
What did we
That's
get
that's
from
that's exactly what the people are saying. Yeah, what's it got us? Hey, can't we just get along with Brussels? Then they seem nice people. Why can't we just deal with them? What's the point of fighting with them? And of
Yeah,
course,
but Trump will lose a valuable card. Like I said, it's not a high card, but it's a nice segue. There are different points of view within Europe itself. I mean, that gives him room to move. If Erdogan goes, then you basically, we can look at Slovakia and whatnot. But I mean, without them being a bloc with the Czech Republic, which is kind of wobbly at
right,
best.
right,
Okay,
right.
the what you and I would call the peace agenda will just be in tatters in Europe.
Yeah. No, absolutely, because he has been the leading voice for peace in Europe, and and that's it. So anyone who's skeptical about the war, looks to Orban, because he's been consistent, absolutely, consistent even before. I mean, you go back to December 2021, he actually went to Moscow and he said, "I think this thing can be resolved. We don't. There doesn't need to be a war." He said that when he met Putin in Moscow, this can be resolved. And so he's been absolutely consistent. Um, but and he thought he had an ally with Trump, and of course Orban nonetheless goes, "Oh yeah, Trump is for peace. Trump wants peace," and he does the whole thing. He settled 8 wars. That's how much he loves peace. He settled 8 wars. Orban, he knows the script. That's it. But I think you're absolutely right. Trump will lose an ally, and that means he's got a whole bloc, an EU bloc, to contend with, and
So
then
all he has to do is deal with Ursula von der Leyen. Okay. Yeah.
That's right. And Merz and Macron and the rest of them. So by any reckoning, the common sense position for him would be, I need to strengthen him because that kind of helps me at least divide the EU. Just that gives me leverage over the EU if they have divisions among their ranks.
Yeah, yep. And Trump will not have a genuine interlocutor because it's an anti-Russia bloc now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, it's leverage, not much. Okay. And rhetorically, it could be quite valuable when used in the right way. But I'm sorry, but, this is kind of a taco thing. I mean, my good friend Victor and all, well, it doesn't really go very far.
It
Okay.
really
And
doesn't.
anyway, everybody's his friend. Okay.
Unless they've said something nasty about him, then they start thinking his friend. Like he apparently didn't know. Remember when the Australian Prime Minister was in the Oval Office? He didn't know that the ambassador had said nasty things about him. So he was some Australian reporter said, "Oh, you don't have a problem, that this Australian. Did you say bad things about me? You did turn to the Australian ambassador. I don't like you." Trump said, "I don't like
What do you
you
say?
now."
And I know you don't like me. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. But that's it. So once he heard, apparently no one had told him that this Australian ambassador had said mean things about him. But I don't like you. Yeah, but I think we're in agreement that the Bessant is going to be the because he has really been
It's going to
malevolent
be
on
like,
the sanctions. Exactly. That's it. With his prissy little lips. Um, uh,
as a Treasury Secretary, I mean, this guy is really out in front because usually Treasury Secretaries, well, we'll look into that.
yep.
We'll see if we can devise a
Right.
plan. Okay, that's very much been the role of the Treasury Secretary. Is
Right.
what was her name? She started talking about funding abortion and all that, which everybody's like, what the oh, what are you talking about? What
Right. Was it
but this is
Janet
what.
Yellen?
Yeah, no, it's that kind of plump one. What was her
That
name?
was Janet Yellen. She was plump.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. I'm sorry. You're right. But I mean, this is a Treasury Secretary that you get the feeling he's been given the green light to
Right.
make policy.
Right.
I mean, it's very rare.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. Because
And
he.
it's really interesting too, over the last 20 years, the elevation of the Treasury Secretary.
Yes. Right. No,
It really,
it is interesting because Treasury secretaries were influential on policy, but no one really knew much about them other than people who were in on the know, people who were reading the Financial Times. But when they made major consequential decision like the Plaza Accords, I think it was Brady. I think the Reagan Treasury Secretary. It was a very consequential decision, but nobody really knew much about that. But largely because it's so complicated, most people just don't understand what these decisions are. But that you've had these Treasury secretaries who did indeed make very consequential decisions. The guy Clinton's Treasury Secretary, he was the Goldman Sachs guy. No, they're all Goldman Sachs guys. It was the one who deregulated, the one who wanted to deregulate the banking system, which led to the disaster of 2008. Very, very consequential. And of course, Bush also had Goldman Sachs guys who were Treasury Secretary, also absolute disaster. So that's usually the case. And now you got Bessant is the
yeah, but I
hedge
mean,
fund manager.
what I'm getting at is that Besson is he's a power center instead of just a reflection. Okay, and which in something that I think more and more people are noticing. Trump doesn't have the smartest people around him. Besant is not a stupid guy.
No,
Okay,
Bessant is
and
definitely
he's actually far. I mean, he's articulate on policies that I don't necessarily and sometimes almost always disagree with. But he's a smart guy. He knows how. He's like a Stephen Miller in a
no,
way.
he's a very smart guy. He's soft spoken, and the things he says are always very reasonable. I think it's very reasonable. Said, well, we've we've been feeding Wall Street. Now it's time to feed Main Street. I said, oh, that sounds good. We want to make sure, there's the middle class that we're going to look after, not the very rich. All very good. Um, but he's now making the kinds of mistakes that the Biden people do. He's saying, oh, well, everything is great. The economy is doing fantastically. Everything is going up and up and up. Well, if people don't feel it, then they don't feel it. And then people get really annoyed
You
when you
can do
say
it
how
on
fantastically the economy is doing.
you can do it on almost any issue. You can, pull out from out of your sleeve, Actually, it's really this way. You can
Yeah,
get away with that so many times, except for
yeah,
the grocery store. You
exactly.
you you
Yeah.
you can't tell people, actually it's better than you think. No, that's one area that it falls flat.
But I do think it's very interesting that from the beginning he started doing the sanctions thing, which isn't really within his purview. But he was peddling this thing right from start. In January or February, he was already talking about, oh yeah, we can apply very serious sanctions against Russia. He said, oh, we haven't even started. The Biden people never really did what they could and should have done. He's saying this very early on, and then you wonder why is he so keen on it? And then you think Soros. This is who he is. This is where he made his mark, and I think that's why he's going to be in that meeting. It's not gonna go well.
Well, also, I mean, we know a lot about the bailout of Argentina and Bessant's friends. He's essentially bondholders. He's protecting them. And that has been exposed and it's been well researched and
Yeah,
talked about. But when he says, I'm paraphrasing here, we haven't even gotten started yet with the Russians. Who's getting paid?
right.
Who does this benefit? Okay, because he is a Trojan horse, obviously, for very, very big money from people that names that we don't probably don't even know. Okay,
That's right.
that's his world.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And that's Soros as well. Whenever Soros would weigh in, I mean, he's quite old now, but he'd weigh in, article in the New York Review of Books. We need to bail out country X, usually Ukraine. We need to bail out Ukraine. Absolutely, we need to, have import 1 million people a year into the EU. You always know Soros is going to be making a lot of money. This bailout, it's not a bailout for anybody. It's bailout for him, Soros, and his friends. That's what he means by bailout. It sounds like, oh, you're going to help the poor
There's
Ukrainians. No, you're going to help yourself and your fat cat friends.
when he writes these articles, nobility is the last word you think of. Okay, well, was it? He was even this was in ancient times. Maybe we get Ukrainians to fight other wars for us. Okay, I mean,
Yeah, no,
in
no, not just Ukrainians,
The
all the
Slavs get the Slavs to
the
do it
East
for us.
Europeans. Yeah, 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 the East Europeans. Yeah, he said that ancient. They said that wrote on about 1992 at the time of the
Yeah,
expansion.
that's
Yeah, yeah.
this
And
guy had a wide horizon. Everybody.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, he made an enormous fortune. He's not a stupid guy, not at all. Okay.
No, no, unfortunately, no, he's not stupid. He's kind of malevolent, wholly malevolent, a really malevolent person. I think there's a consensus, really, other than in kind of Western liberal circles. There's a consensus around the world. This is a malevolent guy. This is a bad person. This is someone you don't want to have around you. The people in Malaysia and in Southeast Asia, they remember the 1997 crash. So that was Soros. People in England remember the 1992 crash, Soros. So, the French say we convicted him of insider trading. So, this is around the world. People say this is not a person you want to have close to you. But it's different in kind of particularly in the United States, in the United States liberal environment. You say, oh, he's fantastic. He's giving us all this money. He's the biggest donor to the Democratic Party. I mean, he surpasses everyone else. So they love him in America, nowhere else.
Yeah, I saw his son posing with Mondani. I don't know if you saw
I
that.
did see that.
He's kind of covering all the bases, huh?
That's right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, well, maybe they're having lunch as we speak right now.
Bit
George and
early
I'll
for
give
lunch.
we'll definitely update everybody
Yeah.
on Sunday. But friendship isn't what it used to be.
No, not what it
Okay.
used to be.
And, I mean, for someone like Viktor Orban, which he expended enormous political capital to support a peace process, when it comes to Ukraine. It must be a crushing
Yep.
disappointment for him.
Yep.
Okay. And again, if Trump, he wants to wage war against the globalists, well, he's not doing it in
No.
Hungary right now.
No, 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 no. You're absolutely. Orban went out on a limb
Yep.
during the years in which Trump was in exile. Remember, he had these bad relations with the ambassador, the ambassador that Biden
Oh my
sent.
God.
That they knew this would absolutely infuriate Orban. They had terrible relations, the ambassador and Orban. That he made the right gamble. Trump came back, and then of course he had the peace mission. He went to Mar-a-Lago. He went to Moscow. He went to Beijing, to Kiev. This was his Orban's peace mission. And then, of course, there was the Budapest summit. So, in a way, I mean, if he comes back with nothing from Washington, that's going to weaken his hand very much
Oh,
domestically. They'll say, "Hey, look at that! You stake your reputation on this, and look, you got nothing."
yeah. What is knowable about the circumstances that George and I are discussing right now, I think George has already mentioned it, is that some kind of deferral until January or something like that. Okay, I don't know, but Bessant is going to be no, no,
No, no,
no.
no deferral. No, absolutely. That's right. Yeah. Because
All right,
I think
Victor.
Trump would probably be tempted. All right, let's defer it until after the election. Just at least get him over the finish line. Bessent was saying, "No, I don't care about his election. What a weekend. No, 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 no deferral." So
No, because what Bessent wants is that he wants a unified European front. He does not want any white spaces or even gray spaces. He
right.
wants it as a block.
Yep.
And as George and I have talked about endlessly, that block isn't run through Brussels, not in the EU, but it's run through Brussels through NATO. Okay. And so they'll have that will all be deep, deep blue, no red spots.
That's right.
All right, everybody. I'm sorry, starting our series here on a very glum note, but it was always possible. Um, this is when you're dealing with the empire. If you're not a valued client, this
Hmm.
is what happens.
Yep.
Okay,
That's
this
right.
is what happens.
Correct.
All right, this is the Gaggle with Peter and George. We're on Locals, so please go to thegaggle.locals.com. I know, buddy. I've already been preparing for this. We're going to get together again on Sunday and our live stream on Monday. And Buddy is under whispered voices for now. It said, "What about the tip jar?"
Yeah, but and that whispered, but Buddies usually makes his voice heard and felt. He's not shy about making his feelings known about the tip jars. So, um, if you have anything lying around, dollar bills, gold coins, gold bullion is even better. Anything straight into the tip jar. We're very grateful for all of your help, friendship, and support. The more you're able to donate, the more of these videos we can make, the more we can improve on the technology. And above all, we have to address this buddy problem, which is getting really very, very, very trying. So remember, if you like the gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon.